Stay quiet, don't try to reflect. Nobody cares. You are not enough.
The thoughts you think aren't all yours. Some are planted, not by the people around you, not by the media you consume, but by something far older and far more invested in keeping you exactly where you are. The ancient Gnostics called them Archons, non-physical rulers that don't need to touch your body to control you. They only need to shape your mind. Every doubt that keeps you small, every fear that convinces you to stay silent, every distraction that pulls you from your deeper purpose. These are their tools. And the longer you believe those thoughts are you, the easier it is for them to feed. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a group of mystical rebels called the Gnostics told a story the Orthodox world wasn't ready to hear. They claim the reality you live in, the one you can see, touch, and measure, is not the pinnacle of divine creation. It's a trap, a containment field, a distortion. And at the top of that distortion are the Archons, the rulers. Not kings in golden halls, not emperors with armies. They're non-physical intelligences, parasitic in nature, invisible to the senses, but deeply invested in one thing: keeping human beings asleep to what they really are. According to the Gnostics, the Archons were born from a flaw in the act of creation, a cosmic accident. Because they lack the divine spark themselves, they feed on the only beings who carry it, us. But here's what makes them so dangerous. They don't come for your body. They come for your mind. They work through infiltration, not attack. They plant ideas, emotions, and impulses directly into your stream of thought, so seamlessly you believe they're your own. A whisper right before you take a risk. You're not ready. A wave of shame when you try to speak your truth. A flood of distractions the moment you sit down to do something that matters. You think it's you. It isn't. This is their brilliance and their cruelty. Hijack your perception so completely that you never question the origin of your own inner voice. And if you believe it's yours, you'll obey it. You'll defend it. You'll live your whole life inside a prison you can't see. The Gnostics called this psychic warfare. Not in the sense of curses or cinematic magic, but the slow, relentless manipulation of your thoughts, emotions, and focus. Modern psychology uses a different vocabulary. Cognitive biases, trauma loops, negative self-talk. Different language, same architecture. Fear that narrows your vision until you only see the worst-case scenario. Shame that convinces you to stay silent, even when speaking could change everything. Distraction that scatters your energy so completely you forget what mattered in the first place. The Gnostics didn't believe these patterns were random glitches of the human mind. They saw them as cultivated, maintained, federal. Every time you tell yourself, "This is just who I am," you lock another chain. Every time you obey that inner voice without question, you strengthen their grip. And their goal isn't to destroy you outright. That would end the game. Their goal is to keep you small enough, scared enough, and busy enough that you never remember what you are. Beyond the body, beyond the thoughts, beyond the cage. Because the moment you remember that, the moment you see the trap for what it is, the Archons lose the only power they've ever had. The Gnostics were clear. The Archons can't touch the divine spark directly. They can't destroy it, they can't steal it, so they work around it. They operate like parasites that never show themselves, only the symptoms. Their influence isn't loud, it's precise. The first tactic is imitation. Archons can't create anything original. They lack the generative force of the source, but they can copy. They study your patterns, your hopes, your fears, and then mimic your inner voice so perfectly that you can't tell where you end and they begin. It's why the most dangerous thought you'll ever hear won't come from an enemy. It will come from inside your head. The second tactic is amplification. They take a single spark of fear or doubt, something small enough that you might have ignored it, and magnify it until it consumes the moment. The risk feels bigger. The danger feels closer. The possibility of failure outweighs the possibility of transformation. And so you choose the safe option, which is exactly the one that keeps you trapped. The third tactic is distraction. Archons thrive in noise, both external and internal. They flood your mental space with endless loops. Things to check, compare, replay, regret. They make sure there's never enough stillness for you to hear the deeper signal beneath the static. And then comes narrative control. This is their masterpiece. If they can convince you that reality is fixed, purely material, and ruled by authorities outside yourself, they never have to fight you. You'll stay in the cage because you'll believe it's all there is. The Gnostics warn that once this architecture is in place, most people will live their entire lives inside it. They will die believing their inner voice was entirely their own. It works because it's invisible. It works because it feels normal. The Archons don't need you to worship them or even believe they exist. They only need you to never notice the weight on your mind, to mistake the bars for the horizon. Because the moment you see the pattern, the moment you realize you're not the one thinking every thought you think, the entire system begins to crack. You'll know you've stepped into the Archon trap the moment you realize your life feels busy, but none of it feels like yours. Your days are full, your mind is noisy, but deep down, you sense you're moving on a track someone else laid for you. That's how they keep you. Not with chains, with momentum. Breaking out begins with one simple act. Interrupt the pattern. When a thought arrives that pulls you toward fear, shame, or distraction, pause. Don't follow it automatically. Ask, is this mine, or was it planted? That question alone can create the first crack in the wall. The second step is stillness. The Archon architecture thrives on noise, constant input, constant reaction. They can't hold their grip in the silence. That's why ancient Gnostics practiced inner withdrawal, and why in modern terms, meditation is still the most subversive thing you can do. A quiet mind can hear what the noise was hiding. The third step is to take back the story. Every ruler, physical or non-physical, knows that control over the narrative means control over the people. If you're living in a story where you're powerless, where the limits are fixed and your role is already decided, then you're already playing by their script. Rewrite it. Reframe the events of your life so you are the protagonist, not the pawn. Your mind is not just a receiver, it's an editor. Lastly, to integrate the shadow. This is where the Archons get their leverage. They feed on the parts of you you're unwilling to see. Every fear you deny, every shame you bury, becomes a tool in their hands. Face it, own it, and suddenly there's nothing for them to grab onto. As Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This isn't instant work. The Archon trap is not one idea, one thought, or one lie. It's a lifetime of conditioning. But every time you stop and question, every time you choose stillness over noise, every time you reclaim your story, you pull another brick from the wall. And something shifts. Your choices feel clearer. The fear loses its bite. You start to sense a presence that isn't the trap, isn't the planted thought. It's the original you, the one that's been watching all along. If the Archons were just an ancient myth, you could file them away with other forgotten stories. But the trap they described didn't vanish with time. It evolved. In the ancient world, the Archons manipulated through belief, myths, dogmas, and rigid hierarchies. Today, the same mechanics operate, but the delivery system is faster, louder, and always in your pocket. Instead of priests guarding the narrative, you have algorithms deciding what you see. Instead of carved idols, you have glowing screens you check 100 times a day. Instead of myths whispered by elders, you have an endless feed of headlines, ads, and curated images, all designed to keep your attention locked outward. It's the same trap, dressed in new symbols. This imitation doesn't just control what you see, it shapes how you feel. The Gnostics said the Archons fed on fear, confusion, and envy. Modern networks engineer the same emotions because they know an agitated mind won't stray too far from the cage. The danger isn't just that these forces exist. It's how ordinary they've become. You've been trained to accept constant distraction as normal, to measure your worth in productivity or approval, to silence the truths that feel too much for polite conversation. If the Gnostics were right, none of this is accidental. It's the design. The good news? The design depends on your cooperation. Every time you follow the script without question, you reinforce it. But the moment you pause, notice, and refuse to play, even in small ways, you create a crack in the wall. The Archons, ancient or modern, can't create. They can only feed. Starve them of your attention, and the imitation world begins to lose its grip. And when enough people stop mistaking the bars for the horizon, the cage itself starts to dissolve. The Gnostics never promised that escaping the Archon trap was easy. They taught that freedom begins in the mind, and it begins with remembering who you are beyond it. Their practices were simple but dangerous to the system. Silence, so you can hear your own signal beneath the noise. Self-inquiry, so you can separate your true thoughts from the ones that were planted. And direct experience of the divine, not through priests, dogma, or screens, but through your own inner vision. They believe that once you've seen reality clearly, you can't unsee it. And once you've tasted your own freedom, you'll never willingly step back into the cage. The Archon trap is subtle, adaptive, and built to feel like home. But every moment you choose awareness over autopilot, stillness over noise, and truth over imitation, you take back ground they can never reclaim. They can't feed on a mind that remembers itself. So start there, at Arcane Praxis.